Alright, welcome back, guys. This is the Norwegian lockpicker. Sorry I've been away for a little while. I've been really busy with everything else, but I've been in my spare time here, I've been picking away at this Ace all brass lock. This is the second part of the video. I got whipped on the last one, so I've been really digging into this thing, trying to understand it and uncover its magical camouflage on the inside. So what I've come up with is the fact that it's all brass and everything is just mushes together, I guess, for lack of better terms. It's really hard to get feedback on it, but I discovered a different way to find the feedback. I don't know if I've seen anybody describe this or talk about it, but I'm gonna call it reverse feedback, and I'm going to demonstrate that. But first, I'll just kind of talk through my process of what I've done to try and figure this thing out. So I started out using this Sparrows. It's kind of a high reach. It's one of the tools out of the Monstrum kit, and I wanted a pick that was very sturdy, so I could really just bully the pins around and kind of get a feel for what I was doing. And I'd push real hard on the pins trying to find feedback, and it just, I wasn't getting anything. The typical feedback that I'm talking about, that I would consider typical feedback, is when you're pushing, once you get into a false set, you know you're sitting on a spool pin. So what you're looking for is when you're pushing on a pin, you're getting that pushback on your pry bar. So you actually feel when you're pushing against that pin, it's pushing, the spool is pushing your pry bar back, letting you know that, okay, here's the spool. This lock does not do a very good job at giving you that feedback. And I think it's just the tight tolerances here from the core to the Bible. There's not much slop in there. So, and then it's just, you get into that deep false set and it just feels like you're dead. You don't know what you're pushing on, what you're doing. So once I kind of developed this different idea, I started playing around, and the problem I was having was keeping my pick. If I put the pick all the way down against the bottom here, the core would start to come back and give me some feedback, but I'm bound up. My pick is actually binding up the core from the bottom, and this warding here is, this warding right here, let's see if I can fix that focus a little better. Okay, this warding right here is at such an extreme slope that as soon as you start trying to rest your pick on there and lever off of that, you're pushing, and then as soon as you get, your pin is locked up and you're pushing hard, just as you're starting to get it and pushing back on you and getting ready to set the pin, your pick would slide off and then I'd lose it. So I took this bottom of the keyway small tension bar, and I'm just letting that sit against the bottom here, so it's not binding up against the lock body, and that gives me a little bit of a shelf there to keep my pick from sliding off. So once I came up with this reverse feedback method, this pick was hard to tell which pin I was on, and if I was pushing on two pins, sometimes I was oversetting the pin behind it. So once I got a feel for it, then I switched back to my medium hook, but I needed something with a little more reach than my normal Tron. So this is just a Sparrows medium hook. Okay, so this new feedback technique that I'm using, once I get into a false set, I know I'm sitting against a spool or multiple spools. So this 5-pin lock, pin 1 is pretty much at the shear line without touching it. So I push pin 2 up, and now went into a little bit of a false set. And right now, if I put tension on pin 1 and I pull back on the core, I can feel it binding. And there I just overset pin 1. So I'll reset pin 2, go back into that false set. So pin 1, when I push on it and I pull back, so I'm pulling on my tension bar this way because I'm not getting any feedback on much. So I push hard on pin 1 and I pull back, and I can feel pin 1 pushing up against the lock body over here. That's telling me that it's set. Do the same now. I push pin 2, I push hard on pin 2, pull backwards on it, and it's binding up against the lock body. So that one's set. I reach up to pin 3 and I push hard on that one, and I'm still not getting any feedback on my tension bar, but if I pull back on it, the feedback feels totally different. So I pull back, put solid tension on, or just light tension on it then once I figure that out. Light tension on the pin, and I turn the core backwards till I feel that pin 3 drop, and then now it dropped and I went into a deeper false set. So now deeper false set makes it even easier. So now I'm pushing on pin 2. Can you hear that? You hear that squeaking? That's the pin, the key pin, driving up against the edge of the lock body or the Bible. Okay, then I go up to pin 3, do the same thing. I'm getting that same reverse feedback telling me that pin 3 is set. I'll go forward, pin 4, and it feels just slightly different. It's not binding up like it's locking the core on me. So lighten up my tension on my pick, turn the core backwards until I just feel that pin drop by. There, drop by. Okay, now I lost a little bit of the false set, so I must have dropped another pin. There, pin 2 is back and holding up again. So now if I push hard on pin 4, now I'm binding up on the lock body again. So now I got that reverse feedback. Pin 4 is set, pin 3 is set, pin 2 is set, pin 1 is set. Alright, so now I got to reach forward, grab pin 5, and actually now that that's the only spool that I'm sitting on, I get just subtle, very, very subtle feedback on my torsion bar, pushing back against it. But as soon as it moves just a little bit, it stops. Now I lost all my feedback again. But if I hold hard tension on that, move it back, I can feel I'm not binding up the core on it. So lighten up my pick tension, come back just ever slow until I feel that pin drop by, and now I drop by. Okay, that was actually pin 4, so I was miscounting, but same technique. Pin 4, pin 4 is binding up against the lock body, so that's set. Now I'll grab pin 5. Now I can feel that slight feedback pushing against it. Lighten up my tension on my pick, come back until it just drops past. There, I heard other pins drop. Okay, I'm gonna go back, set pin 2. I probably overset. Pin 3, maybe pin 4, so I'm gonna drag my pick across them a little bit here, see if I get anything to drop back down. Not working, so then I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna do the reverse picking technique. Oh, I dropped too much. Alright. Reset, start over. Pin 2, pin 3, light tension, let loose, dropped into a deeper false set. Pin 4. Okay, now I got subtle feedback and I don't feel it binding on the core, so I'm going to lighten up my tension, come back on pin 4, drop. Now I'm in a deep, that's the deepest false set that I kept getting stuck on before. So now I got to get on pin 5. Maybe I was missing pin 5 there. I actually got subtle feedback on pin 5 on the torsion bar, traditional feedback. Make sure I'm on it good. Put tension on it, pull back on the core. There, I felt the give just a little bit. There, set. Now I am unlocked. Awesome. Hopefully that helps you guys. That was this was a tricky lock. It took me a long time. I'm gonna try and I'll pull out my, I've got an all brass master lock and an all brass Brinks lock, and I don't know if they have, if they don't have spools and you're not getting into that deep false set, this reverse tension technique, or sorry, reverse feedback technique that I'm trying to describe here may not work. It might require you to go into that deep false set on the spools, but nonetheless I'm using reverse picking if I end up oversetting something. So I just slightly come back on the core and try and drop one pin at a time till you get their false set back, and then once you've got nothing, you don't know where you're at, which pin is holding up, give that a try. Use that reverse feedback technique and try and bind up your key pins up against the body, the lock body, or the Bible, however you want to call it, and see if that helps you out, helps you figure out which pin is the spool that you're sitting on. So there it is, Ace all brass lock. I think they solved the riddle to picking them. It would definitely make it a lot easier having that idea of how to get feedback from the lock. So it's pretty extreme bidding on this one. This was one of the more challenging locks I've had. So thanks guys for watching. Stay legal, and remember, if you don't respect the keyhole, you shouldn't put your pick in it. Thanks guys.